live.
What's up, Akashic Academy? We are interrupting your regularly scheduled programming to bring you breaking news. Disclosure is here, and her name is Elizabeth April. She is here to talk to us about these absolutely mind-blowing aspects of ascension, Mandela effect. We're going to talk about the Schumann resonance. There's so much she's bringing through today, and we're so excited. We are so excited to hold space for this information. And just this growth and evolution we're going to have here today and being with her. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. And thank you, Elizabeth, for coming on. And, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you to, your community for tuning in. And thank you to all three of you for working with the weird glitches that we are all experiencing. So I really appreciate that. And of course, holding space for someone like me to get the information out there, I think is really incredible and important. So really appreciate that. So right now in this incarnation, I'm 26. I am a channeler. Basically, I've been able to tune into different vibrations, different densities, different dimensions, and receive information from a very young age. And that included ghosts and spirits and being able to see auras and chakras and, talking to different interdimensional beings without really realizing that they're interdimensional beings and having a bunch of imaginary friends as a kid. So I was very awakened or very aware at a young age, but I never really utilized or was able to access the full breadth of that until I kind of got into my early adulthood. So around the age of 18 is when I really started to, open up and expand my consciousness that much further. And I think one big aspect of the information that I am able to access and have received is not just being able to channel big downloads of information, which is really cool, and also astral travel to different planets and dimensions, which is also really cool. But it's the ability to tap into other people's Akashic records and past lifetimes. So when I was 16, I had my first ever past life regression. It totally blew the lid off of, all of the questions that I had at that time of, who are we? Why are we here? Is this really it? Is this all I really have to look forward to? Because if this is it, I'm out of here. I don't want any part to do with this, right? I mean, I don't want to just go and get an education, get a 9-to-5 and settle down with a bunch of kids. That's not what I'm here for. And I knew that. And having that past life regression really allowed me to awaken and open up. And at that age, I started doing past life regressions for other people because it was such a huge awakening for me. So I started taking people into a trance-like state where they were able to separate their ego mind, their perception in that moment, from their consciousness. And in that space, both time and space didn't exist. So I was able to take people back into past lifetimes. And eventually, when I started to understand that aliens and interdimensionals do exist, I started taking people off the planet into past and future lifetimes where they were interdimensional beings, right? So if you really think about it, taking 100 people into, say, 5 past or future lifetimes, that's potentially 500 lifetimes that I, as an objective observer, get to witness and piece together all of the pieces of the why the universe works and the how the universe works. So being able to tap into not only my own Akashic records and past lifetimes and future lifetimes, but also others, has really given me a huge perspective on the universe, and not just us as human beings, but us as souls. So I just wanted to kind of let everyone know, especially those who have never heard of me, how I'm able to receive this information, and how I'm able to kind of have the perspective that I do at such a young age. And a lot of it does come from my own remembrance of what I have played with and received from past lifetimes as well. So it's a little background on kind of who I am and what I believe in, but I will mention one more thing, which is I love to really focus and look in at spiritual awakening, right? So conscious evolution, quantum physics, which is all about the how, right? How does the universe work? It's vibrational frequency, other dimensions, parallel realities. We'll talk about that today. And then the third thing is aliens and interdimensionals, right? And cosmic disclosure. So these three things have all been very separate modalities in our history and in our kind of, timeline. And I'm trying to merge all three of these things together to say it's not just about aliens, and it's not just about awakening, and it's not just about quantum physics. It's about all of it. And we can piece it all together to have one cohesive view about what the hell is going on right now at this time with each and every one of us.
Absolutely. And I did share with our viewers in, our earlier show that the way that I discovered you was just a late night, scrolling through Facebook, couldn't sleep, and you were live on a radio show talking about the Mandela effect. And for me, that was a pivotal point in my awakening, realizing that something's really off in our reality, right? So something is shifting, right? We realize that things are shifting around us all the time, and that, it's just about not holding tight, not attaching to the details, not attaching to what we think we remember or all of that we just allow it to flow. Can you talk a little bit about the Mandela effect? Because that, for me, when you talk about that, it's just so much resonance, and I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll give a little brief history on how I came to understand the Mandela effect, because especially for those of you who have never seen me, I do not do any external research. Therefore, I do not pick up books on this content. I do not watch documentaries. I do not seek the information external to me. And I was told at a very young age not to do so, to keep my perception as clear as possible, to keep my channel as clear as possible. So up until the point where I downloaded this information, I had no idea what the Mandela effect even was. And it was back in 2011. It was actually December 21st, 2011, when I got contacted by the Galactic Federation for the first time. I was contacted by a tall, astral, Palladian man. And he basically told me, he says, Elizabeth, he says, there is a Galactic Federation meeting inside the moon, believe it or not, inside the moon, tonight at 4 a.m., right? 4 a.m. your time. And I said, okay. And so he says, you have to be there. He says, make sure that you're not sleeping. We need you to be consciously aware. And I said, okay. So I meditated, I woke up at maybe 1 a.m., started meditating. All of a sudden, boom, right at 4 a.m., I'm astral traveling out of my body, and I just know where to go. And I go literally inside the center of the moon, and it's hollow. The moon, inside the moon is hollow, or at least one section of it is hollow. And there was a huge room, and in this room were all these other interdimensional beings from all different dimensions, including a ton, probably 100,000 at least, astral bodies of humans who were all told about this meeting to come there in their astral self, right? It was so cool. It was like my first time being so consciously aware of all of the different beings. So I'm like looking around me in the stadium, right? Looking at these like little tiny troll beings and these weird gelatin type of beings. And it was so cool. It was like a scene out of Star Trek. And then there was this tall gray, kind of gray, maybe hybrid looking being, tall gray hybrid being, on this little floating pedestal, once again, kind of straight out of, Star Trek or Star Wars, on this floating pedestal in the middle of this giant kind of circular auditorium. And he's projecting his voice or his telepathy, and he's teaching us all. He says, guys, we have to be prepared, because what they've been talking about with the death or the collapse of 2012, right? Because everyone was preparing for the end of the world in 2012. That is still a timeline that is still going to happen, but not in the way that you would think it was going to happen. And then he was talking about the after effects of all of these things, and he mentioned a couple of other things that aren't coming to me now, but some really cool kind of preparing, planting the seeds type of things. I'm like, okay, this is weird, but cool. So I got a little overview during that time, right before 2012, that yes, something is going to happen. Please be aware. Please be awake at this time. This is the time for you to be the teacher that you've always been, sort of thing, to everyone in the room. And that was really cool. And then it wasn't until 2016, so just not too long ago, where I was contacted once again by the Palladian Security Council. Now, once again, I mean, at this point in time, I was in straight communication with the Galactic Federation, so it was no surprise to me that they were contacting me. And they have told me about tsunamis, and they told me about the giant Arctic ice shelf that broke off. They told me about volcanoes that were going to erupt, they told me about the Hawaiian volcano that erupted before it erupted. So they tell me about all these things, right? Anyway, so they said, Elizabeth, we need you. This is the time. We have to tell you about something. And I said, okay, bring it on. So I asked to travel over to the giant mothership that hangs out right outside of Earth's atmosphere. Okay, so it's this giant mothership right outside of Earth's atmosphere, and it's the Galactic Federation mothership. And so I go over there. I go to the kind of boardroom, looks like a boardroom of the Palladian Security Council. There's a super long, almost like uh, what is it? An octacle, an octave, an that shape. Anyway, super long table, and yes, octagon, and yeah, oval, long oval shape table. Anyway, and so these Palladians said, okay, Elizabeth, we have really important information that you need to relay to your people down there on planet Earth. And I said, okay, what is it? And so they bring up this giant, kind of almost like a giant TV screen, but it's a hologram projector. And so he said, look over here at this hologram projector. And I'm taking a look at the hologram projector. And on the projector screen is not just one Earth, but two Earths side by side. I'm like, okay, what's going on here? Why are there two Earths, right? And they proceed to tell me that back in 2012, what happened was, and they did validate for me that it was the Hadron Collider in Sweden, I believe. Giant Hadron Collider that basically they're trying to open up black holes and different portals. They claim, okay, the Hadron Collider, CERN, claims that they're trying to recreate the Big Bang. They're trying to understand how the universe was initially created. Now, if you really think about it, they're trying to recreate the Big Bang, which means that they're trying to recreate another universe. They're opening up portals to other dimensions, to other universes. And I believe that they're not telling us everything that they're doing over there. Anyways, they basically told me that the Palladian Security Council told me that they actually collapsed the reality in which we knew it back then in 2012. So it was actually all it was all planned, right? It was all kind of prophesized to happen that way. Whether CERN knew that it was prophesized to happen or not, they collapsed the reality as we knew it. And all they saw was this huge explosion and everything got whited out. And all of a sudden it was back to normal. But it wasn't necessarily back to normal, right? What they didn't know was that we actually collapsed. They collapsed our one reality. And we didn't just hop into the very next simultaneous closest reality. Because at that time, back in 2012, the vibrational frequency on the planet was shifting, the polarity was shifting to such an extent, there was a very clear shift between the fifth dimension frequency and the third dimension. There was enough people on this planet that were bringing in a higher vibration that when we collapsed our reality as we knew it, we didn't just hop into the very next reality, we hopped into two separate parallel realities, one holding a higher vibrational frequency and one holding a lower vibrational frequency. And what the Palladians told me back then in 2016 was that at a certain point in time, our old reality that's holding the old space, the old paradigm, right? It's no longer going to be able to exist moving forward into this new vibration. And it is quantum physics that states that two vibrations of a different frequency, just like two radio station waves, cannot coexist in the same space. And they said eventually the third dimension reality, the paradigm, is going to collapse completely. And they showed me how the third dimension reality was going to collapse. And they showed me basically nuclear bombs. They showed me World War III that was going to basically implode that planet, right? That old reality. And then, we're going to hop completely into the fifth dimension, and some people aren't going to make it, and there's going to be a huge depopulation, maybe not half the planet, maybe not even a quarter of the planet, but maybe 10% of the population, because those individuals are not choosing to shift their reality to a new paradigm. They are not choosing to hop into that new planet. Now, it's really difficult to conceptualize and even tangibly understand in your own mind of, so what does that mean? We're hopping, we're shifting, like what does that really mean? And the way that I understand it as a human, conceptually, is it's not one planet and another planet. It's actually the same planet with two different vibrations, not linearly happening at the same time, but simultaneously happening at the same time. So say, for example, in one moment, just throughout your day, to bring it really tangible. Say you're having just a neutral day. Everything's just neutral. Everything's just okay. And so say you're walking around your house and you stub your toe, right? And in that moment, when you stub your toe, you have this absolute reaction. It's like, oh no, like, oh, this hurts so much. Oh, this is awful. Now my day is ruined and blah, 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 and you react, right? So in that moment, when you're just going about your day neutrality, right, in the neutral place, and you have a reaction like that, you're hopping instantly into that parallel reality that is of a lower vibrational frequency. And then say in the next moment, you decide to meditate and you raise your vibration. You're like, oh, wow, the trees are blooming and the birds are chirping and I'm feeling pretty great. And you're hopping into that fifth dimension frequency. In a span of an hour, we can experience the polarity shift between the third dimension and the fifth dimension. And we've been experiencing these shifts since 2012. And this is where the Mandela effect comes into place, is what we used to remember, what used to exist, no longer exists because we're hopping into another reality, right? We're hopping into another vibrational frequency. Now, not only is this happening at a global level where a mass amount of people are remembering one thing to another, but this is happening at a very subtle and individual level as well. And I believe when we remember something from the old dimension that isn't currently existing in the present dimension, I believe that's called a glitch in the matrix.
Yes.
That's actually it's a flaw in the programming where we should have never remembered, Febreze being spelt a different way. We should have never remembered sex in the city or sex and the city. We should have never remembered these old realities, but because we're waking up, because we are converging ourselves into the fifth dimension includes both the third and the fifth, which means in the fifth dimension frequency, we're not just looking at the cup as it is blue. We're looking at the cup as it was green and as it was blue. We're remembering everything that has existed, including everything and everywhere we have existed as well, which means past lifetimes. We are actually waking up to our entire existence, and not just our limited existence as it was in the third dimension. When we are in the fifth dimension frequency, we are able to observe everything as a whole and not just one part of the elephant. We are observing the entire elephant, right? And that goes back to kind of a Buddhist story, I believe. But anyway, yeah. So we could talk about this all day, but that's how I understand the Mandela effect. I feel like I have a piece of it that the rest of humanity has, but I also feel like I have a perception of it that a lot of people don't have, because I have been receiving these direct downloads from the Galactic Federation. So what do you guys think about that? What is your understanding of the Mandela effect? Where are you at on this, very untangible but tangible, and we're all living through it type of thing?
So what you're saying is what we're experiencing now is actually a higher reality of what it was. So the Kit Kat with the apostrophe in it is a better one than the old one. And the fact that Nelson Mandela is alive, when a lot of us remembered him dying and going, oh, that's so sad, changed the reality of a lot of things in South Africa and in the world just because he lived.
Yes, exactly. And I don't know if I want to just confirm and say it was better. And yes, the Nelson Mandela thing is, but things like the Febreze versus the Febreze spelling, or Berenstein versus Berenstain, it doesn't really necessarily better society. But someone brought this up to me not too long ago, and they said, Elizabeth, and actually it's so synchronistic that we're talking about this, because this week on all of my platforms, we were talking about dimensions. So a lot of cool questions came in this week. Someone said, so they're like, so did the whole consciousness of the planet shift when, Berenstein turned into Berenstain? Like, did the collective consciousness shift that? Like, what happened? How did that shift? And so I didn't, I never really thought about that. Great question, though. And so I looked into this, I channeled it, and I said, how did this collective thing shift? And so what I channeled was that, and let's just use a tangible example of Star Wars, right? Luke, I am your father versus no, I am your father, right? So that sentence alone, yeah, it's so iconic, but it didn't necessarily raise or lower the vibration of the planet by changing that one sentence, just like Febreze versus Febreze. It didn't really change things. But what I did channel is that the writer of that line or the person who created that slogan, or the person who created that brand name, okay, going all the way back to the beginning of the creation, right? I believe that they changed their vibrational state of being in that moment to say, is it going to be sex in the city or sex and the city? What? And then in that moment, because of that paradigm shift, they shifted their paradigm and they chose the one over the other. It wasn't an astounding choice. It was actually quite a simple choice in that moment, but it happened to be quite astounding because that logo or that name or that sentence happened to be so iconic later on. So I believe that it was actually the individual in that moment when creating that thing that shifted their individual vibration. And it seems like it's much more profound because everyone's aware of it when it's not really that profound at all. They just shifted their vibration and they chose the one reality over the other when this entire reality collapsed, if that makes sense.
Here's the thing that was coming through as you were talking about though, is where we have been programmed for a very long time to be detail oriented, right? Focus on detail, detail, detail. Fill yourself up with detail, right? So that there's no open space, because then we start thinking, we start expanding. Yeah. But if we fill ourselves up with detail and we pay attention to detail, then we don't have time to do anything else but just focus on that. There's no bigger picture, right? So if we are so detail oriented that something happens that shifts the details that we have attached ourselves to, so that we step back and realize there's something bigger, right? So these are activation points for people that are triggering awakening, triggering them to start looking at the bigger picture. Then wouldn't these be specifically designed as that, and it's part of the divine plan in that way?
Oh, yes, that's a great question. Absolutely. I think these glitches in the matrix, right, that everyone is waking up to realize is validating this feeling of something is different. Something is different. And it's cool because when I talk in the level and the depth that I kind of explained to you guys, right, when I talk about this stuff, I mean, it's over most people's heads, like in the conceptual way of like, what does this even mean, right? And I remember thinking that when I first, came into contact with the concept. But it's so beautiful because at a deeper level, you don't have to be a physicist or a mathematician or even a scientist to understand these things. At a deeper level, it seems like everyone is starting to really just resonate with, yeah, something is different. And I want to give a very tangible example of this in my own reality. I'll give two really tangible examples. Back in 2016, when I was awakening and opening up to the Mandela effect, I'm like, I wonder if I can experience these glitches in my own personal reality. And I'll tell you, okay, not just all three of you, but everyone who's listening, the second you ask for something, it will come to you tenfold. It's like, you buy a new car and then you see that car everywhere, right? The second you're aware of it, you're creating it in your reality. The second you ask to see glitches in the matrix and your own experience of the Mandela effect, it will come to you. So I started I got contacted by the GFL. I'm like, let's experience this in my own reality. And so I did. So two really cool examples of this. And ever since I've been noticing all these weird things. But the two first ones that I experienced, so I parked my car in my underground garage, right? I mean, this is back in 2016. Parked my car in the underground garage. I had a neighbor that parked their car beside mine, right? Super typical. So I would walk by their car every day to get to my car. And the one day they bought a new car. And so I was very attuned to this new car, not only because it was my neighbor's car, but because of the color of the car. It was my favorite color, which is this really electric turquoise blue. Like I freaking love that color, right? So instantly I'm drawn to the new car. And it was like this crossover SUV with this beautiful electric blue color. And I remember it was I think it was a Toyota, right? It was a Toyota crossover RAV4 or something like that, right? But it was a crossover electric blue car. Right? So I walked by it for about a week. I'm walking by, I'm like, oh, what a nice car, blah, 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 right? Going to my car. And then, no word of a lie, 1 week goes by and I go to my car and the brand of the car has changed. The brand of the car has changed, right? So here it is. It's a Toyota RAV4 beautiful electric blue crossover, right? The next week, so I go by a week later, it's now a Nissan, looks like the same thing, a crossover, Nissan crossover, same color, electric blue, Nissan crossover, right? So I'm like, oh my God. So I'm freaking out, right? And I'm like, I'm like going to my partner. I'm like, oh my God, it's got to be a Mandela effect. It's got to be a glitch. It's got to be. It's like instantly I knew that something was off, right? And then my boyfriend at the time, he's like, you're crazy. They just bought, they just bought the Toyota, right? I mean, you're crazy. Like they must have just swapped the car, because he obviously noticed the Nissan to the Toyota. And they just swapped the car, whatever. So anyway, so I'm like, I gotta find out. I gotta figure this out, right? So finally, maybe another week goes by. They have this Toyota. I see them, right? They're getting out of their car, and I see them, and I say, okay, I gotta ask them about this, but not in a crazy sort of, oh my God, glitch in the matrix way. So I asked them, and I say, you know what? I'm in the market for a new car, and I noticed that you bought this new car. They're like, yeah, we're really loving it. And I said, yeah, like, I said, what did I say? I said, yeah, doesn't the Nissan, have a car or whatever that's very similar, or what, doesn't the Toyota have a car that's very similar to the Nissan that you bought, right? And they're like, actually, yeah, they have a very similar car. And we test drove both of them. And I'm like, okay. And I said, I really love the color of the car. And doesn't the the Toyota also have the same color of car? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, were you really thinking about getting that other brand, the Toyota instead of the Nissan? Yeah. How did you know? I'm like, oh, I've just been doing some research, right? And so I'm like, so just validate for me, like, you never ended up buying the Nissan at all. And they're like, no, we chose to buy the Toyota, but it was such a close call. We could have bought, or we chose to buy the Nissan. It was such a close call, we decided to go with this. And I'm like, okay. And so in that moment, I got it confirmed, right? Yeah. That they never ended up buying the, whatever it was, the Toyota. They always ended up buying the Nissan. But turns out I saw them buying the one in the one reality. For a whole week, they had the one brand, hopped into another parallel reality where they actually bought the other car altogether. It doesn't matter. So cool. They loved the color. They loved the crossover. And that's what it was all about. One more glitch that I noticed in that same week. It was so cool. So me and my boyfriend at the time, we would always watch, like Real Time with Bill Maher. It's like a political kind of talk show, whatever. We really loved it. And so we would always watch it on Friday nights because that's when it was live. And so it was like this one week, and a friend of mine called me up and says, Elizabeth, I'm hosting this super epic conscious spiritual retreat this weekend. You have a free ticket if you want to join us. And so in my mind, I'm like, oh, I got to work so much, and I've got this thing going on this weekend, and I don't know if I can do it. And so all this fear came up, right, in this lower vibration. And so I'm like, last minute, I'm like, you know what? It's 2 days away. Fuck it. I'm not living if I'm not taking this opportunity. I took the opportunity. I went to the retreat, right, that weekend. Anyway, so I left on a Thursday to go to this retreat up north. I came back on a Sunday. Then me and my boyfriend sit down to watch Real Time with Bill Maher, whatever the show was, that was live on Friday, okay? So we get like 2 minutes into this show, right, this TV show, whatever talk show. We look at each other, we're like, the guest is this, they talk about this, they play this video, this happens. We're looking at each other, we're like, how do we know every single thing that happens in this TV show? If it aired on Friday night and I was gone on Thursday, I'm like, was this a rerun? So we looked into it, wasn't a rerun. Turns out, because the parallel realities were so close of, I was either going to go to the retreat or not, there was a glitch. There was an overlay in the realities of,
Wow.
We remember watching that TV show on Friday night when I was actually away that entire weekend at a cosmic retreat, and so there was a glitch in the overlay of, we actually remembered what happened in the third dimension where I fed into the fear and stayed home that weekend. And I chose the fifth dimension frequency, and I actually went to this retreat and, and we remembered that TV show, and we're like, what? We didn't have to watch it because we already watched it in the other parallel reality, right?
That's so cool.
One more example I want to give, and then we can go on to something else. A client of mine, okay? So I'm starting to talk about this stuff, starting to open people's minds. A client of mine calls me up and she's like, Elizabeth, the weirdest thing happened. And I said, okay, tell me. She's like, all right, well, me and my husband, and I've been working with her for years, right? So I know the whole issue between her and her husband, right? Me and my husband had this incredible, epic conversation last night. We were talking all about consciousness and awareness and choice and, the different dimensions and all this stuff. We had this great conversation. And then we went to bed, right? We fell asleep. And then the next morning, we both get up to go to the grocery store, right? Going to the grocery. So in the car, right, we're driving, and I turned to him and I said, what an incredible conversation last night. I'm so glad we talked about all of those really authentic, heartfelt things. And he turns to me and he's like, what do you mean? What conversation? He's like, you watch TV. I passed out at 7. I mean, that was our night. And she's like,
Oh
we were
no.
up until 10 talking about all of this amazing stuff. He's like, no, I mean, you're clearly remembering something that didn't actually exist at all. And she's like, what? And so she's like, am I going crazy? Like, what happened? And then so I channeled it and I said, oh, last night when you and your husband were talking, you raised your vibration to the 5th dimension frequency. You had a conversation in the 5th dimension. You hopped into another parallel reality. What happened was you both fell asleep. You woke up. You woke up in the 5th dimension frequency where you remembered what happened in the 5th dimension frequency the night before. He woke up in the 3rd dimension frequency where something entirely different happened last night altogether. So he remembered what happened in the 3rd dimension frequency. She remembered what happened in the 5th dimension frequency. Both of their timelines were completely split the very next day. And she thought she was going crazy. He thought she was going crazy. Suffice to say, nowadays, they both watch my content. They're both in the 5th dimension all the time. And he is as big of a fan as for me, as she is to me. And it's really incredible to see that they've both now hopped into that, really beautiful parallel reality. So, but that's so wild how
That can explain so much in my life. No.
I mean, since you shared that on your live, because I remember watching that and I was like, holy shit, now I get it. Because I swear to God, I have these conversations and, the other person's like, I don't remember that conversation. I'm like, but I know we did. It kills me. I'm like, okay, what's going on? Why do I feel like I'm losing my damn mind? And then you said that and I was like, wow, now I get it. Now I understand. So I'm holding space for them to come back into remembering as they raise their vibration. But it's like, in the meantime, we walk around going, do people just forget everything? Do they just not, are they not there when we're talking? Like, is it one ear out the other? It really is that we're just, at different frequencies when we, and it's just a matter of, they'll remember when they come back into that frequency and that's it. Yeah. But that for me was so powerful to be able to stop having, because that created a lot of fear. When you realize that people aren't remembering what you're saying and you're like, what's the point of talking? They're not going to remember. So, that for me was huge when you shared that story before. So, totally resonates.
Yeah. And now, now that I'm in this place, I can just really play with the different vibrations and dimensions and things like that. Like I went to a live music event, this past weekend, and I went there just solo because it turns out, everyone kind of dropped the ball on me, right? So I'm like, okay, cool. I meant to go here. I meant to go solo. The people who I thought I would connect with were like all on the other side of the room. And then all of a sudden, me just sitting in my own little zone, in my own little space, these beautiful individual light workers started to just gather around me without me having to say or do anything because they felt my vibration, right? And so now I walk around the world and I feel like more than half the population out there doesn't even see me because I am in my own vibrational frequency. And if you go to like, say the, downtown business district of, LA or Toronto, you'll see that you're just walking. People run into me because they just don't see me because I'm in a different vibrational frequency altogether. It's quite hilarious now, noticing that. So
yeah, that's cool. I love that. So I know that's something else we want to kind of, and I don't really have a segue for it, but I know you're going to talk about Schumann resonance. I think that's coming up more and more in our awareness of this Schumann resonance and what it means, how it's affecting us. Can you share some of that?
Mm-hmm. So around the same time, 2016, I don't know how it came into my awareness, but all of a sudden I, found out this thing called the Schumann resonance. And for those of you, definitely, anyone who's watching definitely needs to look this up. I think it's I don't know, Schumann, resonance. Anyway, and so basically what this is, it's a measurement of the vibrational frequency of the planet. That's all it is. It's a scientific measurement of the vibrational frequency of the planet. Now, back in 2016, the average resonance of the vibration on this planet has always been 8.72, I believe, something along those lines, 8.72. And so since 2016, we have spiked. Like the highest that I saw it go, it was around Easter, and I want to say it was Easter 2017, and this was a huge flip that we all made, and it went up to 130 hertz from 8.72 to 130, and everyone's hitting the ceiling, everyone's going crazy, everyone's feeling really triggered, people are dying. And if you think about the vibrational spike of that, if you're at a low vibration, you cannot handle it. It's like a tidal wave of energy hitting you. And if you're not even close to that energy wave hitting you, you cannot exist here. It's like the planet is naturally purging out the vibrations and the lower vibrational. It's almost like parasites, right, in our body, and parasites on the planet of Mother Gaia. And so the highest I've ever seen it is 130. Right now, we are going from, like, June was a crazy month, so I had to check out the resonance in June, and it's been spiking. I think the highest in June was like 52, something along those lines. Wow. 52. Once again, our average is 8. It's 8, and we spiked in June to 52. Now, what happens with the Schumann resonance? And once again, it's just the vibrational frequency on the planet raising its energy. What happens is same thing. If we're not even close to those high vibrational frequencies, we are going to get triggered. We're going to have an ego death. We're going to let go of all of the old fears, the old paradigms, the old habit patterns in our system that no longer serve us. The more attached you are to who you think you are, the more attached you are to the things and the people and the reality around you, the more difficult it's going to be for you to let go of what isn't serving you. So I'm sure that most of the people watching this, especially the three of you, in the past 3 years, okay, between 2016 and 2019, we have had a huge shift in the paradigm, which means there has been mass amount of job loss. There has been separations with, couples that have been together for 25 plus years. There has been identity crises. There has been health crisis. There has been freak accidents. All of these really jarring, really shattering, really collapsing aspects in our individual realities that are forcing us to recreate a new paradigm and recreate new foundations that are at a higher vibrational level. So we're all being forced to go through this at this time. I myself went through this huge shift and purge in the past couple of years, and most of my clients have been going through that as well. And I feel like the people who actually find my content, and probably with your content as well, they have to go through the purging before they're even ready to hear what we have to say, or else they're just going to get triggered, right? Because we're triggering that lower vibration to purge, right? So it's so interesting.
It is. Yeah. It's fascinating because, like I said, we were talking about it a little bit before we went live, but I noticed that I'll have like a super triggering day or a couple of days, and then I'll go see, and the Schumann resonance is whited out for that period of time. It's okay. So we're taking on all this energy, we're purging all this density. And, once you have the awareness that it's just happening for us to help us open space to bring in a higher vibration, it's part of the ascension process. That's what we're here for, and so we're holding space for those who are starting to awaken and those who will awaken, by doing a lot of this work now to, be able to show them and help them do it for themselves, but it's like, holy, I don't want to go through this all the time, but, here we are. We are jumping in and we're doing the work, and, having somebody like you who can help us understand it better is such a gift. It's such a blessing. So thank you for that. Absolutely. I know there were some other things that we're going to talk about. I know we don't have like unlimited amounts of time, unfortunately, but I know there were some other important things. But I think that's something that we really want to touch on. I know it's one of Rhonda's favorite topics, is disclosure about aliens. So what can you tell us about some of that? And I know it's a big thing, but just kind of like the highlight reel.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. So a couple of things that I want to mention about aliens and cosmic disclosure as a whole is, and this may trigger some of your viewers as well, because I'm not even going to explain it. I'm just going to say it. Yeah. And if they want to get into it, they can check out my content. But I believe that we are all hybrids. I believe that we are not just third dimensional humans. I believe that our DNA has been genetically modified and created by interdimensional beings. Now, this is huge, right? And I bring this up because the understanding and awareness of aliens and interdimensional beings, that they exist, just the acceptance of that as a whole will shift our DNA and will unlock an aspect of us that we can actually connect to that reality of, oh, aliens exist. Whoa, what does that mean for me? And then the next layer of consciousness that you break through is, holy shift, you know, I'm an alien, right? And then you open up and then you're like, well, what does that mean? If I'm not just a physical third dimension random being floating on this random rock out there, and if this is all for purpose, and if we have a greater purpose because we're actually greater than just who we are, then you can start unlocking things like astral travel and telepathy and remembering your past lifetimes and ascending to that higher level of being. But we have been so suppressed into this fear state of, you know, you got to do better. You're not good enough. You got to look better. You don't look good enough. You got to be a better mom. You're not a good mom. You know, all of these things that kind of come into our awareness, all this fear and this triggering of the fight and flight in our reality, right? It really suppresses us to believe that we aren't good enough. And with that belief that we're not good enough, we convince ourselves that nothing is where it needs to be, nothing is where it should be, and so it really suppresses us into this state of fear. And in that state of fear, that lower vibration, we're unable to unlock the DNA that we have within us. I believe that we are hybrids. I believe that we have higher vibrational DNA that is just waiting to be unlocked. And if you think about us as human beings, or Homo erectus, right? Homo erectus. And then we have gray DNA, which is 6th dimension DNA. Of course, we have reptilian DNA, which is 4th dimension DNA. Then we have Anunnaki DNA, which is 10th dimension DNA. We have Palladian DNA, which is 8th dimension DNA. Actually, the majority of the DNA, the 90% DNA that we have in our body, the junk DNA, okay, the bullshit junk DNA that we have in our body, is all higher vibrational interdimensional beings that we have within us. The only part of our DNA that we've ever really unlocked is our Homo erectus, right? Our original kind of ancestor body DNA, as well as the reptilian DNA, which is all about the fight and the flight. It's all about the survival. But we have all of this magnificent higher vibrational DNA within us that is just waiting to unlock, so that we do have the ability and the capacity to be sensitive and empathic and enlightened and conscious, you know? And so I believe that just understanding that aliens exist at a conceptual level is a huge step in the right direction. Like, if we were to have global disclosure tomorrow, we're going to see tons of people awakening. And the problem is with society is that we believe what is fed to us, like the majority of the society anyway, we believe what is fed to us. So if all of a sudden breaking news, aliens exist, it's so unfortunate, but it's really awesome because it is starting to happen. If breaking news, aliens do exist, the majority of the population is going to start to believe in aliens just because the media said that aliens exist, right? Which is sad in some regard, but also really exciting because they are starting to disclose, you know, the truth about aliens. And that disclosure alone is going to break open everyone's reality to say, if that's the truth, then what else don't I know? If that's the truth, then what does that mean for me? Right? And that is going to ensue a huge, chaotic, but really exciting awakening. And one more thing that I really want to mention is a bit of a timeline download, okay? And everyone needs to know about this download that I received years ago. Okay, so just really briefly, between 2016 and 2019, the teachers of humanity, the teachers of the 7 billion on this planet, are meant to awaken. And when I say teachers, I mean like cosmic ambassadors, cosmic beings, light workers, volunteers who came to this planet to serve a mission. And that mission could be, you could be an accountant and you could be serving a mission and changing the game within that field, right? You don't have to be a spiritual teacher to be a teacher. So between 2016 and 2019, okay, if you have collapsed your reality and any one of those facets, if not all of the facets of your reality, if you've collapsed yourself, in between that timeline, you're a teacher. That's it. Okay. There's not any question about it. Okay. So between 2016 and 2019, if you collapsed your reality, you are a teacher. The reason why all of us teachers have had this shitstorm hit us, and all of the ignorant people around us are like, what do you mean? Life is great. And we're like, what are you talking about? You know? And so if you've collapsed your reality between that time, you're a teacher. The only reason why you've been hit with the shitstorm beforehand is because you are meant to be a teacher for the rest of the population who is about to get hit with a huge ego death between 2020 and 2024, okay? The teachers have been forced to go through our shit to transition our
First,
foundations,
yeah.
to step into our power first so that we can be the graceful ease for the rest of the population on the planet between 2020 and 2024. So now I've received that 2020, 2024 is when all of us are forced to step into the teaching role to help to heal and guide the rest of the planet into that fifth dimension frequency. And by between 2020 and 2024, there's going to be a mass collapse in society. So for all of the teachers who have already gone through the shit, it's going to be great. It's going to be amazing. We're going to be floating along. We're going to be receiving abundance.
Yes.
We're going to be in alignment. For everyone else, it's going to be a cluster F of a shitstorm that is going to hit everyone, and including the global population. We're going to see economic collapse. We're going to see, we're going to see a political collapse. We're going to see religion collapse.
Yes.
Okay. We're going to see
Yes.
all of these ego belief system attachments collapse at a global scale and at an individual scale between 2020 and 2024. I believe around 2024 is when we're going to see the absolute harmonization of the planet Earth. And we're going to finally start to see, oh, we're finally doing good things for the environment. We're finally, putting good political practices into motion, and so it's going to be crazy. It's going to be absolute chaos between 2020 and 2024. And then things are going to settle down and rebuild after that time. And if you think about it, if it took us as one individual being 3 years to have a full ego death and collapse and a full rebuild, it's going to take 30 years for the entire planet to have a full ego death and a full rebuild, right? I mean, probably not 30 years, but it's going to take at least 4 for the absolute collapse, and probably at least another 10 for the rebuild in a really purely divine way. And that's why I think a lot of the millennials and the post-millennials and the Gen Z or whatever, all of these younger generations are these seed planters. Not all of them for sure, but some of them, these little diamonds in a rough, are these seed planters in the political sphere, in the religious sphere, that are going to change and help to reestablish new and healthy foundations. So they're not even old enough to think about new foundations, but they will be to help to usher in this new age moving forward. Yeah.
That's so
Beautiful.
exciting. I love it. I get full body resonance as you're talking about it, because we're
Yeah,
ready.
I was feeling that.
We've been doing, we've all been doing the work, holding space and say, okay, when's it going to start? It needs to start already. Okay, we're waiting. And it's like, here it comes, right? So this is what we
the way showers have to go through it first.
Lifetime after lifetime of training to be ready for this. So here we are, ready to go. And it's going to be, there's a quote that I don't remember exactly how it goes, but out of chaos, great stars are born. And that's where it is. We have to experience the chaos to shine as bright as we possibly can. So we're ready to just take it on and get dirty and get in it and then, find our way out and be in that peace that we deserve. This is awesome time. Such an awesome time to be here.
It is. I love it.
I remember being like, yes, I want to go. Like I have that vibrational memory of being like, yes, I want to go. I want to incarnate. I want to be on that team. I want to do this. And so when I have those moments of like, you've got to be kidding me, I've had enough, I don't want to deal with this, I go into that space and I'm like, but I chose this. I wanted to be here. I wanted to experience this. So that's my silver lining of, of the ascension process. It's awesome. Very cool.
Yeah.
So cool. So I was hoping we might be able to get you to channel a little something, if you would be so kind. Just whatever they want to bring through. Would you be willing to do that? I love watching you channel. It's just such a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me check in with the, because I've already kind of mentioned it, the Galactic Federation. Let's take a look at the, Palladian Security Council, because people love to know where I'm getting the information from as well. So let's take a look. Let's see if they have any major, massive messages here today, or maybe just a little, kind message of encouragement. So just 1 second. Okay. Okay, beautiful. I want to check in again and see if there's anything else, but they did give me a really clear message and a really clear analogy. I always find that when I'm channeling for like a population, like a mass of people, they always give me images, and I think it's because like one image speaks 1,000 words, right? I mean, anyone can interpret it in a different way, or anyone can understand it, at that level. So they gave me an image. The first image that they gave me was water, right? And I'm seeing the water, and I'm seeing the rippling of the water. And they're telling me that the water represents vibration and energy and also polarity, right? Because you've got the peaks of the water and you've got the lows of the water and you've got the vibrations of the water, right? So it makes sense. I'm like, okay. And then they were talking about 0 point or neutrality. Okay, this is really important, especially at this time. And what they want to mention is they want to talk specifically to all the people who are having a really freaking rough go of it during this time, especially in June. Okay, and they're saying that when we are challenged and triggered and there's projection and there's all these things that are going on around us, where do we go? How do we choose? How do we become conscious? What is the best place to be in during those times? And of course, acceptance and surrender and all of these words come up. But what they said is, if we're at the 0 point, if we're at the place of neutrality, then we're always making the right decisions. And they mentioned something about the right and wrong as well. And so I said, can you explain this a little bit further? And they gave me the image of, so the ocean, right? If you can imagine vast, ocean, vibration, vast vibration, and then a little tiny island, just big enough for you to stand on, right? So you're on this island. Now the island represents a place of neutrality. The island is the place where you're not in the peaks and you're not in the valleys. You're just there. You're just in the place of complete objective awareness. Now, in that place of neutrality where you're not feeding into the love and you're not feeding into the fear is the only place where we can be objective enough to understand which direction we want to go in. And it's super cool. So they showed me this little island that just this, ambiguous person was standing on, and then the vast ocean all around them, and the peaks and the valleys and all the vibrations. And then they showed me like probably 10 other little islands all around that island. And this represented all of the different decisions and all of the different directions and the parallel realities. And so what Palladians were saying is right now, with all of the crazy, intense polarity energies, we're getting very stuck in the moment. Yes, we can be objective. Yes, we can be neutral, but we're so overwhelmed with all of the different choices and the awareness of all of the different possibilities. We don't know what direction or which path to choose. We don't know what the right answer is, right? And so the biggest thing that came through is there is no right and wrong. There is no such thing as the right direction or the wrong direction. There isn't. The action behind it, especially even in an unconscious way, the unconscious action of, sipping some water or taking a walk down the street, in that sense, we are naturally being pulled and called to the reality that we created with our thoughts the moment before we took the action. Okay, so it's not about the action. It's not about concentrating on the action. Intuitively, you will just take action on what feels right. So right now they're saying we are all being inhibited. We are all being held back by the contemplation of what is the right path and what is the wrong path. That one looks like a scary path. I don't want to go down that, but you find yourself going down that. That's not the wrong path. Okay, so don't get caught up in right and wrong, and don't get caught up in the love or the fear. It's not about that. It's about surrendering, being present in the moment, and following your intuition, following whatever feels right, and always having that place of neutrality, always being able to maintain this place of objective awareness so that we're not getting caught up in the specific decisions and we're not getting caught up in the high highs and the low lows. We have to maintain that place of neutrality. So once again, don't get held back by what decision you're making. Just know that any decision that you're making is going to be the right one based on the reality that you projected in the moment before. Now, the important part is not the action that you're taking or the direction that you're taking with the action. The important point is the projection of the thoughts. be aware of the thoughts that you're thinking about in every single moment. Don't worry about the action. The action only follows the thought. Have conscious awareness of each thought in the moment of, this is an unhealthy choice. So in the next moment, I want to be more healthy, right? And then naturally, you're going to start to see yourself putting action behind choosing healthier drinks to drink, right? You don't have to think about the action of, is it right or wrong? You're following the projection of the thought. So be aware of the thoughts. Be in meditation more often, because in that place of meditation, we're having that neutral and objective perspective where we can choose what feels right for me, not what do I think is right for me. Because in that thinking kind of perspective, we're actually just mirroring the projections in our life, right? And the pressures in our life. So anyway, so that's definitely the download that came through. And I think that's going to help a lot of people at this time, definitely kind of being pulled in all of these different directions.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to clarify, because you did say, well, they came through with no right or wrong. So that means when it's something that is right for you, it's vibrational alignment, right? That's how we try to discern. Okay, I just wanted to clarify that, because a lot of people will be like, well, if there's no right or wrong, how do we determine what's right? But it's whatever vibrationally aligns with you at your core. Not with your mood, not with your, whatever.
Yes.
It has to be at your core. Yeah.
Yes. Vibrational alignment is a great way to put it. And you could stub your toe and you would be in vibrational alignment to do that. Yes. You could have a car accident and you could be you are in vibrational alignment to have that, right? So vibrational alignment does not determine what is right and what is wrong, what is good and what is bad. It just is what it is. And the more we accept what is, the less struggle and the less fear and the less judgment and the less attachment we have. It is what it is. This is shitty and that's okay. And I'm going to move through this, and not attaching yourself. I'm never going to walk by that table again for fear of stubbing my toe again, right? We can't now create a reality around the fear that we had in our reality because we perceive that thing as negative, right? So just pure acceptance and 0 point energy.
But then we also learn how to actually change and shift our vibrational alignment, so we can say, okay, well, I've been at that vibrational alignment. I don't want to experience that again. Let's see what happens if I move it up, or if I move it over here. Like if I just shift my vibrational alignment around, then I get to choose what I experience, and that's how we're manifesting. That's how we're co-creating. We're doing it all the time, just unconsciously. So then we move into conscious creation. Choose your alignment, choose your vibration, then you get to choose your experiences.
Absolutely. And I just wanted to mention too, like what I've found with the people in my life as well as the clients and things is a lot of people are going through situations of what they don't want to understand what they do want. And sometimes we have to say, no. Now that I know what I don't want in a partner or a relationship or a job, okay, I guess I kind of know what I do want, because most people don't know what they want.
Right.
And by experiencing the polarity of what they don't want, they actually kind of come to the conclusion of what they do want. It's like the trick in multiple choice. It's like, what is it? Process of elimination. Yeah. So this is what we're doing in life right now. We're experiencing the polarity of what we don't want to understand fully what we do want. And that's okay to just go about living life, stubbing your toe a million times to say, okay, I'm not going to do that again. But that's okay. We have to go through that.
Yeah. That's so resonant with what I'm experiencing as well. Just like the situation in my life has been playing out, and I'm like, I don't want this anymore. I don't want this, but I keep putting myself in vibrational alignment with it. Okay, so what do I do different? How do I step out of that alignment and say, okay, I know I don't want to experience that anymore, so let's see what happens if I go into this vibration instead, and see if I can attract what I do want instead. And it's not see if I can. I know I will. I know I'll attract what I do want by being in alignment with what I want. So it's so perfect. I mean, I know the collective is going through this right now. It's like slamming us in every direction, because it's really like we have to purify ourselves so we can move into this next phase. We can't take this shit with us.
And one more thing I want to mention on that just kind of came through is, say, for example, it's like, just an example of a drink, right? It's like, okay, I really don't want this because it doesn't make me feel good, right? Or whatever it may be. So you really don't. So I want something different. So a lot of us are like, okay, I don't want this. I want something else. Now, when you just say, I want something else, and you just leave it completely open like that, boy, are you going to get everything and anything else that's not that thing.
Right.
But if you're not clear on what it is that you do want, you're just going to leave it open to experiencing everything else that you don't want, right? I don't want this, but I want something else, and I don't know what that is. So you're going to attract something else, right? But it may be the same thing packaged in a different way until you say, you know what, I don't want any more sugar and I want something that's healthier for my body. The more specific you are on what you do want, the more specific those things will come into you, right? So just be aware that if you're ambiguous of, I want abundance, great. Well, guess what? You're going to get an abundance of friends and not necessarily an abundance of money, right? So you got to be clear on what it is and not just saying it, but feeling it and vibrating with it is really important. So, yeah.
Absolutely. That was a great point. Absolutely. Because again, going in just saying, I don't want this, but I want something else is being an unconscious creator, because you're not consciously choosing. And it's our job to participate actively in our experiences, and recognize that we are creating them. We're the powerhouse behind every experience we have by choosing, whether it's conscious or unconscious. I wouldn't want to walk around just saying, okay, life's just happening around me. I'm not comfortable, but I don't know what to do. We're all done with that, It's time for us to step into that power and be like, I'm choosing to have a really kick-ass day today. I'm choosing to hang out with Elizabeth April today, and I'm loving every second of it, And here we are. So this is awesome. This has been such an amazing experience.
That's what we did. We chose it, right? We kept everything open. We kept it open. We knew it was going to happen.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So great.
So much fun. I took up so much of the questions. Girls, did you have anything you want to ask her? Because I know.
You covered a lot, and I let you just go because
Thank you.
Yeah.
Amazing.
That was good.
It was good.
I could see that my move from California to Tennessee was closing those timelines, and so I probably didn't realize so much, but why I resisted so much is because, man, I am closing off everything, and here I am in a much higher vibration now. What's next? Hey, I'm going to co-create it, and I'm going to be specific now that I see how it's all going down.
And I find that when we make bigger choices, right? When we make like really startling choices of, I'm going to have a child, or I'm going to get married, or I'm going to move, or I'm going to leave my job. When we make little choices about what we're going to drink, we don't see the parallel, like the flipping of the realities. But when we make a big choice, like I'm going to move, the second that you affirm and confirm that choice in your mind, your entire reality will start to shift to align to that choice that you made. And it makes it very clear about the different parallel that you're flipping into, because it's such an intense choice of now everything's going to be different and everything aligns to that vibration. And it makes it a much more clear, much more evident that you are shifting because it is a much bigger choice. So
Elizabeth, just a question for our viewers. Where can we find you? I put some of your links in your link tree, which is really cool. Never saw a link tree before. That's awesome.
Yes. The other question.
So people, if they're interested, if they resonate with my content, they can find me on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, just for a bunch of free content. I also have a membership page right now on Facebook, and it has a ton of like really in-depth content. It's called The Teachers, and that's just for $11 a month. So if they really want to deep dive and they're ready for the more quantum layers of what I talk about, definitely recommend that membership page. And then what else? I also have a masterclass I wanted to talk about as well, just a little bit. I've developed over the past 10 years of channeling a course. It's either 8 weeks or 16 weeks, depending on your timeline, of basically transforming someone from the third dimension, from a fear-based level, into the fifth dimension. This course is meant to take you from one state to another. So if you're like, okay, Elizabeth, I get it, I get what you're talking about, but I don't know how to change. I don't know what the tools are. And it takes a lot of repetition. It takes a lot of accountability for yourself. And this is what the course gives you. It gives you the structure, gives you the repetition, it gives you the play-by-play on how to actually change and transform. So if you're feeling very lost and you're ready for a shift and you're ready to commit, then there is that course out there. And a lot of people, they want to change, they just don't know how. And that's why I developed the course. So just be aware that I do have a lot of things out there that can help you shift and change. And of course, check out my website as well, elizabethapril.com. And I'm all over the place. So yeah, keep up to date with all of that great stuff.
And the Monday Lives at 5:55 on her Facebook page, which we love, we inhale. And you'll see Rhonda and I there hanging out, watching and interacting because The info is so, I mean, everything she brings through is just absolutely profound and powerful and resonates so clearly with what we're experiencing. And yeah, this is the real disclosure. It's happening on a, intimate level, not on a big level yet. It's happening on an intimate level. And we're all here holding space for it, and we love it. This is just such an awesome thing to be a part of. So yeah. All right. So the rock and roll question, or the music question, if you had to pick a theme song or song to be the theme song of your life, what would it be?
So I'm not a big music person. Okay. I don't really like, I'm actually more into like EDM. And it's funny because years ago, I was like, why do I love electronic music so much? And my Greys, like my little Grey family, they told me that I love electronic music because it's the closest to the music that they have up there on the ships. Like, they don't have instruments that they play. They're not really dexterous. They have electronic music, right? So I'm like, oh, that makes sense. That's why I'm like, I love EDM. But if I were to choose a theme song of the moment of my life, like right now, not maybe my whole life, but the moment, it would be Let It Be by the Beatles.
Ooh, perfect.
Awesome.
That's awesome. Yeah. I love that. Yeah. That is, yeah. Ooh. That's a good one for right now. That's huge. Yes, that is amazing. Thank you so much for hanging out with us and for giving us the opportunity to introduce you to, or introduce our audience to you. And I would think we get a lot more viewers now because it's, there's so much that you brought through. They're going to have to watch it again just to kind of process everything. But
I bet.
This is it. This is what we've been all holding space for. And we're just honored, so honored to hang out with you. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, lovely lady.
Teresa, did you want to let everybody know what's coming up? Just because, you can say your stuff again.
If you love the Ladies of Spirit sessions, each and every one of us, we are planning on going live tomorrow night with a card pull. Each card pull is $10, and we're going to go live, I guess, on my page, right? Is that what we decided? The Claim Your Akashic Inheritance page, and then we're going to share it out, and we're going to spend some time with everybody. So come and join us, and we're going to have a lot of fun together. There's always so much, this more relaxed atmosphere. There's so much more that comes through about us. So you'll get to know us all really well, and we'll be getting to know you guys too. So let's have some fun tomorrow night. What, 7 your time?
7 p.m. Eastern.
7 Eastern time, 6 Central, and that's like 4 Pacific. So join us. Let's have fun.
We can hop timelines much easier because we've been doing it for like 2 years because we're all on different time zones. So we don't have that. Yeah, we've been doing it for a while. So it's kind of cool. And Janelle Cameron's up at about 8 o'clock tonight. So 8 or 9 tonight. With the Cosmic Ascension.
Very awesome stuff to listen to.
But thank you. I know people can't, right at this point in time, book with you live, or you don't have your monthly lives or monthly sessions anymore right now. Do you?
Yeah, no, right now I've closed off one-on-one sessions. I mean, the clients that I have all this week booked in December, right? So I was booked 6 months in advance, and I just need to clear some space. But I do want to say that if you are interested, please follow me on Instagram, because I will release, say for one day, I will open up my schedule to sessions. Okay. So moving forward, I'm going to have this very intuitive, whoever needs to book a session, I'm going to open up. And if you're aligned and you're in the right place at the right time, you will be able to book a session with me. And mostly that announcement will be on Instagram. So just be aware that I will be opening that up at very intuitive and random kind of moments moving forward. And that's going to how I'm going to work these sessions. I'm still going to have them, just not to the extent that I had them before.
That's awesome, though. What a cool opportunity.
Yeah.
I love following you on Instagram anyway, because I love your live videos on there too. I can get as much of you as possible. It's great stuff. It's always just amazing. So thank you. Yes, thank you for being a way shower.
Well, thank you so much. And I'm just going to close our live off. And we'll be back next week, Sunday at 12 p.m. with Garnet Schulhauser. So he's a pretty cosmic guy all by himself.
Yes.
And, another Canadian, by the way. It's Canadian week.
Yes.
Yay. See, I've got my Lime Wing shirt on. Yay. Anyways.
I love it.
So see you next week, everyone. Bye.
Bye bye. Namaste.